On the right side, I get to use the good interface here. Why is Lord a sexual deviant? Alright. Let me get this straightforward. So, Ghost Dunk, would you like to be on comms, or are you okay with just being in chat? First question, I was last pick. Should I have grabbed a different support? I mean, we don't... Okay, so... So I'm an observer on the Nexus Schoolhouse Discord. You can drop in whenever you want to. Let's look at the draft. So this is This is not Tomb of Spite. This is Garden of Terror. Thrall is their soul laner, although there's not a strict soul lane on Garden of Terror. You pretty much just put one person in one of the side lanes, and then your 4-man tries to keep everyone else safe. Having someone who can do camps is important, but you already have Sonya for that. Zul can double soak on Garden of Terror. He's actually one of the few heroes that can. You have a global. They have a Johanna, so they have the Blessed Shield, Sunder, Root, and that's a lot of really high impact stuns potentially, including Reign of Vengeance. So looking at their comp, you need cleanse. Like you absolutely 100% need cleanse no matter what. When you're talking about the amount of CC that their composition has. So in that sense, Brightwing's fine. I don't see the benefit of the global. They have a certain amount of poke damage, so the sustain healing from Brightwing is okay. But they mostly have, like, in the late game, if this were a competitive match, I would look at their comp and be like, they're just going to try and go in and blow someone up as hard as possible. And when that's the case, I want a save mechanic. The only save mechanic Brightwing has that can deny what they're doing is cleanse if your team is good about saving mobility tools and their own personal survivability cooldowns for after they get cleansed and they actually use them. And then on the other side of the equation, you have Emerald Wind, right? So you can... But Emerald Wind usually really excels against dive compositions, and they're not, like, super divey. I think Rhaegar would have been better by a little bit. Also, I just think Rhaegar is usually better in Hero League. Uther would have been better, but apparently he was banned. If you're good at Brightwing, then pick Brightwing. There's always, I mean, I can always recommend heroes and be like, this hero might have been, you know, better for this or better for this or better for this. But there's always a situation where you got to remember the hero has to be good, or you have to be good at the hero for a hero to be good. Hey, I'm actually going to switch over to audio activated instead of push to talk, so you can hear me on comms no matter what. Because I'm not going to remember to press it, and it's going to be annoying.
Brightwing is my most played hero, so that definitely factored in.
Did you take cleanse?
This is like the first time I did not.
I'm very disappointed in you.
I was actually remembering advice of how, you know, don't bother taking cleanse in Hero League.
I mean, if you're a support main, it's one of those things like if you're good at cleanse is worth taking in the right situations. If you're not good at cleanse is never worth taking. But you can't get good at it if you don't take it. So I encourage people who aren't support mains and don't have the reaction times to you know, never take cleanse. But if you're gonna be a support main, and as I recall, you main support, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's my most played role. I'm really kind of deciding on what my main is lately, but yeah.
Well, at minimum, you should have considered taking cleanse, and like if you weren't certain you were gonna need it, like you could have waited till 10. You could have Iacona'd it for Mind Control, Rain of Vengeance, and Sunder and Blessed Shield. Like that's 4 potential extra things that are cleansable, right?
Yeah.
You're standing way in the back here, which means your aura is getting absolutely no value. And you have 2 noob stuns and a Zul root that you can follow up on in terms of CC. You didn't polymorph the Zul target. If you polymorph the moment Zul roots someone, they can't get away from your team before the root activates, and then they're rooted in your team instead of a little bit away from you. I think that actually might have been a kill if you had been up and polymorphed the root target immediately. Because you have that telegraph, so you know, like, Zul's kind of weird because when he roots someone, you can pre-CC them, and then his root is the follow-up to your CC, but his was the initiating CC. People are gonna have to remember that a lot more now that Zul's kind of back in the meta. You back up, but yeah, especially now with the Brightwing buff, where you can see her range indicator, you definitely need to. Also, this wave's not clear yet. So you go mid until the wave is clear. That's... You're not going to miss any soak if you leave. Of course, you don't have a mount, but you do have the increased movement speed from Pixie Dust. You can use that to rotate. You're not going to run out of mana before the objective, and then you can Hearth back, and then Z on to wherever your team is. You think Brightwing's hard? I mean, Brightwing is reasonably hard to play. Brightwing is a very judgment-based hero because she doesn't have save mechanics. She can't really heal you up. She has to prevent the damage in the first place, which means you have to anticipate a lot of things. And your polymorph has to be a tool that you use either as peel for your team or as a pick tool. And you'll frequently see Brightwing draft in professional play almost purely for polymorph. We've actually seen CC back in the CC days. We saw Brightwing Tyrande sometimes. It's just polymorph, it's just a follow up CC. So you're rotating to make sure the soak doesn't miss, but look how long it takes. This minion's not going to die for another 7 seconds, I think. Maybe even... It's about 6. It's about 6 seconds on the top. So if you've been 6 seconds later, you wouldn't have missed any soak, and your team would have gotten at least 1 more tick. So far, I don't think you've healed... You've healed 1,003, which is, I think, 1 tick on your entire team, and then you just left. So if you'd been in range of your team that whole time, that number would already be in the 4K range.
Yeah.
You got to be near your team. It's managing your range. It's just a constant breaking point. It's easier than it used to be now, right? Because you can see your range. This is not a winning lane, but it's okay to stay here with Sonya because you see the Solanas. Again, it's one of those things where you need to be in range. We're gonna keep an eye on your cooldown usage. You should always be poking with your Q. Mana management's not a thing that Brightwing ever has to worry about. Because generally speaking, you can't burn your... even if you were spamming your abilities on cooldown, if you were picking up globes, it would be very difficult to burn through your entire mana bar in the time it takes to your Z to come back up. So you can always use your Z just purely for mana, and therefore you should always be burning your abilities constantly. And you're leaving Sonya here in a 2v1. Sonya is a soul laner, but that's in a 1v1. Also, Sonya doesn't have block versus Thrall, so it's not a favorable matchup for her anymore. Or at least it wasn't. I don't know if that's true post rework. But regardless, in a 2v1, she's not going to win. And that's a Solanas. So if they decide to push in, they can do real structure damage. Obviously, this is Hero League. Your lanes are shitty. So
yeah,
use your global presence to go to whichever lanes is losing. Like, Falset's coming here. This lane's losing, so he's coming down to the lane that's losing. It's totally reasonable. I don't know why he's doing that. And you're just... keeping a Nubrak alive, I guess. They got the pick on the Thrall, that was good. This is something that I always like doing with Brightwing, and I'm glad you're doing it. Stay in lane when the objective spawns as long as you can.
Yeah.
Ideally you should know, and this is just a trick you can do, know where the minion wave is, so you can look at your minion wave, because they're mirrored. So currently your minion wave is just crossing your keep gate, which means you know their minion wave is just crossing your keep gate. That's going to give you, 10 or so seconds until the minion wave gets there, and you got to ask yourself, well, is my team going to need me right now, or can I do things? That's good. Polymorph. Yeah. Nubrak did not follow it up. Split fire. It's unfortunate. That should be a dead Johanna. If everyone had been on the Johanna, if the Zul hadn't tried to focus the Vala, that's not your fault. But it's just... For everyone who's watching, I'm illustrating this. If you're ever in Hero League, if your tank is on someone, focus whoever your tank's on. If everyone just focused the same target all the time in Hero League, this would be a very, very different game. That will force Johanna to burn... Actually, Johanna does not have tap, it looks like, so that'll force Johanna to just AFK a little bit in Hearth. You already established your positioning here, so your team ought to have gotten this Terror. Like, you already established your positioning, you already forced everyone back, you've zoned them away, so you know they're not here, and then you can grab the Terror. Falstad is getting crushed bottom. You could Z out and help with that. In an ideal world, Zul would actually never help you guys at all with the objective. He would just constantly be pushing lanes and soaking. What level is this game? I believe Ghost Dunk is a silver player, right?
Yeah, anymore.
And it's worth noting that a lot of the advice I'm giving is generally applicable, but I'm ignoring some of like the high level things that you'd have to depend on your teammates to be good to pull off. I'm focusing on what you personally can do in terms of decision making to make a game better. You're face checking there. You're ahead of your tank. It actually ends up working out because you steal a bunch of seeds.
Yeah, I make a lot of mistakes that I don't get punished for.
Oh my god! I mean, it's not a mistake. So technically, nothing is a mistake unless you get punished for it. And the problem with that is you develop these habits that as soon as you get into gold or platinum, it's a habit for you to do this because you didn't get punished for it, and now you do, and you get crushed. One of the things that was so funny about my personal climb when I was actively doing Hero League was I would always refuse to do something dumb, even though I knew I wouldn't get punished for it in the league I was in, because I didn't want to develop bad habits. And then as soon as I managed to like push into Diamond, I went on like a 30-game win streak because I already had good habits, and I wasn't actively punishing stupid things that were being done in Platinum because I knew it would overextend myself. Does Cav cast Heroes Hype? I do cast Heroes Hype occasionally. I have not been asked to cast it the last few weeks. I think I was going to say they prefer to give it to less known casters because it's kind of like a growing thing, but then they give it to Lauren and Kala, who are both very well known, so I don't know. This team fight is so messy. That Vala should be dead again. No peel, no focus. Sunny is just casually 1v1ing Thrall in the background. Nice kill on Vala. This Thrall is gonna win the game for your team. That was a bad play to Sylvanas. Technically trading 1-for-1 when you're down like that can be worthwhile, but and you did everything you could as Brightwing there, right? You CC'd the right target, the right time. You hit your Qs, and you stayed near your team, so you were getting as much healing as Brightwing can get. Where do I send the position for a Cav Calicast? Tweet at Heroes Hype. Heroes Hype responds when people like want specific things. And it's like, Heroes Hype knows who I am. They have my contact information. I've never declined anytime they ask me to cast. So, that's on them. You're fine mana-wise, and you have... what'd you go at 7? If not...
I was planning to go the shield.
Okay. So, you're probably going to have another cooldown available. Your Z is up. You could have gone back for full mana. Death timers are short enough that you should assume the re-engage. And your team just did not burn this down. Again, if you just grab the one top, like this phase would be over. Falsehood's already soaking, which means this is currently a 5v4. There should be a lot of retreat things going down here. Except for the fact that that Vala just is trying to face tank a Sonya. Sonya is spinning on nothing there, or Sonya would be fine. This is one of the reasons, by the way, that I don't like Brightwing in mid-tier play. Blooded Replay. Because you get in these situations where your team does something stupid, takes a bunch of free damage, and you can't fix it. Like, it takes Brightwing 30 or 40 seconds to fix a really stupid mistake. And Showtime spinning on nothing there wasted his cooldown. So if he'd waited till he could spin on all three of these guys, but you can't like fix that as Brightwing. You should get ahead here pretty easily because of the false dead soaking, but you shouldn't have taken that fight. That's the Sonya's fault. I don't think there's anything else you could have done. Like, I don't think there's a poly you could have gotten off there that would have saved the Zool. Someone should be checking that bush, but there's really nothing you can do about it. Sonya should have been able to hit that spear. If your poly had been earlier, that vault would have not gone off, and then the spear would have definitely hit, and that might have been a dead Vala. That's just a timing thing, though. You gotta... Like, you want to poly whenever someone's around to follow it up with another CC. Is that why lower-level games people ban Medic? Yes. The reason Medic has a really high win rate at very low leagues is people don't know how to dive in a coordinated fashion, and it's very hard for any one hero to kill Medic. And if you're not killing Medic, then she can fix any stupid mistake anyone on the team makes just by hitting Q and standing there. I had a... We reviewed, like, back during Throwing Games Thursdays, I think we reviewed a gold game with a medic, where the medic did, like, 250,000 healing. And it was literally just, she sat there with Q. Didn't, like, stutter step or move around. No one focused her. She just stood there. And healed people with Q. And then if she ran out of mana, she hearth, and she came back. And no one died. Because Medic's healing output in low-level games is ridiculous, because if you don't focus fire, you can never kill the medic target. You just can't. And if you don't dive, you can never kill the medic. That was them being dumb. They just got rooted by the boss there. They should be leaving, and they're not. It's actually a worthwhile use of your Z, because now you can get the poly. So you polyed... You polyed Mouth. The focus target was Janna. Right? And again, it was the Zool route. Iron Skin was actually available, so if you had polymorphed, Johanna would 100% be dead, because the root would have hit for a little bit longer. And it's, again, a very, very common problem. I see it in pro play. I see it, you know, almost every single kill I see in a bronze game. It's people don't focus the same target. Yeah, Sonya did not take Hurricane. There's 2 roots on the enemy team, and Sonya did not go the anti-root talent. She also took Composite Spear over Poison Spear, which I would not do against this comp. Because you can already gap close the Vala and the Sylvanas, and Poison Spear will... Poison Spear and 2 slams plus the auto attacks will, I think, one-shot both Sylvanas and Vala. It's not really a one-shot, but it will kill them. So... Can you talk about AA Vala? Kira says it's bad at some level. We can talk about AA Vala after this if you want. The problem, the major problem with AA Vala is she gets really good once this quest is finished, and she has her level 20 talent. So you take a hero that's actually good for the entire game with other builds, and you crush her down into a point where she's only good in the very, very late game. But at that point, why didn't you just pick Nazeebo? Like, why didn't you just pick a hero who's already spike, whose only spike is at 20, and at 20 they're stronger than AA Vala is at 20? It's just, it doesn't make sense to do that when you can get an instant spike and have a hero who's good the entire game. The main strength of Vala is that she's good for the entire game. What about that weird Vault Reset build for Vala? It's a variation of AA Vala. That is played by a GM Korean player who plays nothing but Vala. He is a Vala one-trick. He doesn't go that build every single game. He only goes that build on maps where there's always going to be a target around for him to get resets, like Infernal Shrines, and lane-centered maps like Tomb of the Spider Queen or Dragonshire, where you're fighting near minion waves constantly. and he just like boom, 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 and just has mines. He has like minefields of Caltrops everywhere. Crone does that too, I thought. I've never seen Crone go Caltrops Death Dealer. If he does, like that's where the build came from. It was that one Korean GM player. He's not on a pro team. He's just a Vala one trick. He plays literally every game he can play as Vala, he plays as Vala. I think he has like 2,000 or 3,000 Vala games. Death Dealers are pretty common in A-Talent. I think Faye started that. But the build that they're talking about is the Caltrops build. It's fun. It's a fun build. It is very mechanically intensive. And he only does it on certain maps. But I mean, he varies his build map by map. But he only plays Vala. If you are one-tricking a hero and that hero has even marginally better builds on certain maps, then you can absolutely play the marginally better build. But you're essentially, in a real sense, you're essentially like learning another hero with a talent build that different. So, correct play here is just to soak and get 10, which is exactly what you're doing. Merc camp pressure. Zul should never do merc camps. I'm gonna say this till the cows come home. Zul should never do merc camps. He doesn't have the damage to do it. He doesn't have any sustain while he's doing them, and he's not creating skeletons while he's doing them. So if you see someone who shouldn't be doing merc camps and you're a support, you should go help them so that they spend less time doing a really dumb thing. This is an unfortunate part of playing Hero League, and one of the reasons I don't like playing Hero League. If you see someone on your team doing something really dumb that's wasting a shitload of time, go help them do it so they waste slightly less time.
I actually started doing that when the Nubarak started doing the Bruiser camp, and then I realized that nobody was soaking mid, so I left them to go do that.
Would Faye be suited as a coach or caster? I think Faye could be a good analyst for a team, honestly. If Faye wanted to do that. I don't know what Faye's long-term plans are right now. I know she's said she's focusing on her stream. So you're also doing the global thing. Zul led to Hearth, which means he's not in lane. If you're a Zul player, here's how to tell if you fucked up. Are you in lane? No? You fucked up. Zul literally wants to be in lane 100% of the time, if possible. To the point where if you draft him on maps like Infernal Shrines, it's far better for your team to delay his 4. Not even think of, like, delay his 4, don't even think about the objective. And have Zul double soak. Like, he doesn't ever want to leave lane if he can help it. That's why he's so good on Tomb, because people don't complain if you stay in lane all the time on Tomb, because the lanes are all there is. Obviously, you have to leave lane eventually, but you want to like do it reluctantly, not voluntarily. Why'd that polymorph happen?
To wait for the stream.
Well, so Sonya's being chased by 4 people, but Sonya's absolutely fine. Like, is in no danger of dying. You just hit 10, and your Anub'arak and your Zul are rotating on the minimap onto the 4-man, so this is going to be a 4v4 shortly, and you already burned Polymorph, so now you don't have your follow-up CC. Like, you used it as peel, but you didn't use it as peel for anything. Like, Thrall didn't throw his root out yet, primarily because it's on cooldown, so he actually can't. So this is a thing. Whenever you use an ability, you want to be using an ability for a specific purpose that you're trying to achieve. So, if you're trying to peel, if you're trying to use polymorph, it should be I'm using polymorph for peel, and I'm using polymorph for picks on CC chains, or I'm using it in unusual scenarios like you have an ETC mosh pit. I'm using it as an interrupt for certain things. Sonya's fine. Sonya is not CC'd. And therefore Sonya can run away because they're not gap closing her.
Yeah, that was probably an errant judgment of deciding whether the Sonya was safe or not.
Yeah, but it's just, you always want to think about over and over and over again, every single ability, like what am I using these abilities for in general and specifically in the matchups that I'm in. And if you ever use an ability for the wrong thing, like that's one of the things you want to go back and look. If you want to be really, really good at a hero, go back and look at your replays and be like, every time you use an ability, like, what did this accomplish? Did I mean for it to accomplish that? And you can start like critically thinking about when to push your buttons. Because obviously pushing the buttons is easy. It's knowing when to push the buttons that's hard. That was a pretty good wombo combo, actually. Malfurion probably lived there because your polymorph wasn't available. If polymorph had been available, I'm pretty sure you could have sneaked your way through and killed and gotten him, and that would have allowed the Falstad to kill him. Falstad dealing with a Sylvanas split push. Falstad's actually playing really well. He's using his global like very, very effectively. Zul's finally doing the right thing, going to lane. This Johanna is not doing anything. That was a good polymorph. Like, that was perfect. If Anub'arak had been on point with his Impale, that would be a dead Johanna. Didn't have it, though. I think he wanted to save the mana. So everyone's out at this point. You didn't need to use your shield there. And if Falstad dies here, it's literally because you didn't take cleanse. Okay, he's fine. But Falstad should have died there. And it would have been because you didn't take cleanse.
Yeah, I felt dumb as soon as I saw the mind control.
Well, and this should have been a draft consideration, right? You should have looked at the draft and been like, oh, we need a support that needs cleanse. So Thrall's completely overextended onto your side, but your team all had to be, so there's nothing that you can really do about it. But your team can do something about it. This is one of the things that you should always do if you're a global, even if you're a support. And I like the fact that you're pinging your phase shift available in 2 seconds. I would actually grab both camps before I phase shifted in, especially since you already got a pick. There's no danger for your team if they're in a 4v4, right? And you can keep an eye on their team. And what I would actually do is I would keep my camera on my team so I can click on them instantly if they do get engaged upon. And I would look at my mini-map to keep track of where I am and if anyone's rotating on me. But since you just saw the bottom, you have to assume that there's only 1 or 2 people that could be rotating up to you that you don't see. So I would, and that's just a sort of a funny thing about camera control in general. If a fight's going on and you have a global, your camera should be on the fight, not on you, and you should keep track of yourself on the mini-map to see if anyone's rotating towards you.
Yeah, I might, I don't know if I was doing that here, but like I think
We can check.
I was expecting the, yeah.
You are not.
Okay.
You are focused on yourself. Actually, we could leave the camera. Okay, so now you're focused. Now your camera's focused on them. And as you see the Sonya initiate, you actually come in. That's actually really good timing. I didn't see the polymorph happen. It must have happened. So I was looking at the minimap for a second there. You're focusing on yourself here. There was a chase that was happening. And you have Blink Heal and Polymorph is about to be up. If you'd blink to the Anub'arak, they might have been able to secure that kill as Polymorph came off cooldown. So as a support, if your team chases, regardless of whether or not it's the right decision, you want to at least have your camera focused on them. You have to go for the defense against the Sylvanas here. There's a minion wave there. You should stop and clear that for 13 because you're that close. You get it, and now you should go continue. Phase shift is up, so you can actually stay here, and then phase shift on. You should do that right now. Like as soon as Sonya or whoever gets there, you need to go help defend. Unless you're going to go bottom and get that soak, but their entire team is chasing the... Okay, so you're just soaking here. And again, your camera should be on the fight, because you need to know if you're there. Your camera currently is on this situation. There's nothing you can do to help the terror, really. So your camera doesn't need to be here. Cue the mini wave. Nice. It's really good, by the way, that you're queuing the archers, because they do the most damage. So if you're trying to push a lane, you always want to kill the archers first. The mage minion actually has the least health, but also does the least damage of any of the minions, including the frontliners. So the archers are, if you want to push the lane. If you want to freeze a lane, you also still want to kill the archers, because they do the most damage, and therefore you can maintain the lane wherever it is by minimizing, or by leaving the front line minions as healthy as possible. So like there's almost never a situation where you want to kill anything but the archers first if you're a ranged hero, unless you just can't quite get to them. And again, there's a situation where you had a double stun on a target and there was no follow-up polymorph. Most heroes who have a CC, you can classify them as either initiation CC or follow-up CC. One of the things that Mene talks about with his Kael'thas build, I don't know why you guys let them pick up all those seats, is one of the nice things about Kael'thas' level 4 talent is it gives him so much range on his stun that he can switch from being initiation, or switch from being follow-up CC only to being an initiator. He can actually initiate fights with his stun. But Brightwing, you can never really get in range to be an initiation CC unless the enemy team made a mistake, and they're really, really far forward. So you always want to think about, is my character have initiation CC or follow-up CC? And if you're follow-up CC, you always want to be looking at the other people on your team that have CC and then follow up what they do. You never want to just like cast your CC when you're in a fight, unless you're using it for peel, because you always want to be the follow-up. This is a good teleport in. You should be focusing on the mouth here. 100% on the mouth. Everyone's on the mouth. That's good. Your Q should come out on the ice block. It's not necessary there. He's dead no matter what, but it's a good habit to get into. Whenever someone has an ice block ability that is timed and you know they're going to be there, you want to learn to time it, because it's going to apply to every single aspect of your game. And if you have a 0-1 in your game, it's going to apply to your timing out VPs, everything like that. Like, you really want to get used to the habit of stasis abilities are free, guaranteed hits.
Mm-hmm.
The Impale missed there. This Vala should be dead no matter what. Except for the fact that your Anub'arak is out of mana. Your Anub'arak is burning through mana like crazy, by the way. Which I don't entirely understand, because it's not like he took any of the cooldown reduction talents. Life Funnel without Hurricane versus Double Roots. I mean, that's except for Leap and Composite Spear, this is a pretty standard Sonya build, but it's just like not the right build for this game. So you're 5v5, but you're up 16. You have Zul split pushing, so you want to do something here called a slow siege. Especially because you're a sustain healer, you just want to slowly push in. You don't want that to happen. That's another death because you didn't take cleanse. Does he live? Oh my god, he lives. And you actually get out of there! Nicely done. That was a good blink heal. That situation right there is why I prefer going Emerald Wind on 100% of cases as Brightwing. Because that fight would have been just like completely disengaged instantly with Emerald Wind, whereas you had to get chased all the way back to your base and barely kept people alive with Blink Heal.
Yeah, I regretted not doing Emerald Wind. The game is ultimately, like, the last thing that happens in the game is that Sony gets picked off and they just go core.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That'll be new and different. Yeah, Sonya is the reason that I don't play Brightwing in Hero League. Because Brightwing's a perfectly fine soul support as long as everyone plays around her inherent weaknesses. But people who just YOLO in... generally speaking, if you're a bruiser and you're in front of your tank, you're not necessarily in a position. What is the optimal Brightwing skin? I don't know. As far as I know, there's no Brightwing skins that give an animation advantage. So whichever one makes you happy. It's a purely aesthetic question. Pizza HS, thank you for the host. Appreciate it. Again, that's a dead mouth. Nice! Ah, you did it early though. That was a quarter second early on your Arcane Flare onto Mouth's Ice Block.
Yeah, I don't know why. I messed that up.
Oh, please don't tell me you're taking this. Please don't tell me you're taking this. Please don't tell me you took it. You took the tear. Why did you take the tear? So if you're on Garden of Terror, the person who should take your terror should be the person who's most redundant in your composition. It should never be your tank unless you have 2 tanks. It should never be your support unless you have 2 supports. It should never be your range damage dealer unless you have 2 range damage dealers. And you kind of get the theme here. Your whatever's left in your 4-man when you take should still be a viable composition unto itself. On average, the best person to take it is whoever your bruiser is. So in this composition, it should be the Sonya or the Zul taking it. I would probably put the Zul in it just because I have a Brightwing as my support. In the early game, I would have put the Sonya in it, and I would have had the Zul split to a different lane. But it should never be the support or the tank unless you have a whole nother one, right? So if you're running double support or you're running double tank, it's fine. Also, don't YOLO the Terror. The Terror is, in the late game, is not just sieging buildings. You use him for team fighting. The Terror does a significant amount of damage. It's basically a whole extra health bar. So if you can win a 5v5, but you lose your Terror, but then you're in a 5v3 without the Terror, your whole team can go get a keep. If you just split push for the Terror and they kill it for free and all you got was like a wall, that's not as good by any source of imagination. So never take the Terror as a support unless there's 2 supports, and don't split push with the Terror in the late game. I would say post 13 you should never do it. That's Ariat Crater. Okay, so now you're in a 5v4. You have 20, they don't. The correct call here is to go kill that bottom keep so you have catapult pressure, because getting the seeds will not get you a second Terror. And in fact, you could go do this by yourself if you wanted to. You don't need to Z in here. It's okay if you do. They end up getting a kill. That's another dead Malf. Bottom keep should go down in the next minute no matter what. You could even actually, if you kill bottom keep right now, because they're in a only 1 person alive scenario with 1 person rezzing, you could actually zone them away from their Terror. You could actually deny them their Terror if you just went bottom. Instead, you're pushing mid wall. Okay. That keep's not going to die, is it? Does that keep die at any point during this game?
I don't remember.
RNRTV, thank you for the host. Welcome. For those of you just joining us, we are doing sub replay review. So this is a silver game. We're just talking about calls that could be made and individual mechanics that could be adjusted. That keep is still alive. The worst part about this is you're letting them get 20, and whenever you're up a talent tier advantage in the very, very late game, your question should be how can we put the pressure on them to potentially end the game? If you just passively do things, they eventually get 20, and then you have a fight. And that should be a kill. 100% that should be a kill. Nope, has Falling Sword. And people wonder why I always go Falling Sword on Johanna. And we're getting camps. Okay.
Okay, I have a question then. Like, how can I do that as a support? Like after 20, I feel like
you
if
ping.
I just start doing that,
you ping. In Hero League, you have to shot call, and you have to try. When I'm playing on my Korean account, obviously I can't even speak the language, but I ping a lot. Like I ping a lot. As soon as you got that pick, you should have been pinging bottom keep. As soon as lol. And I guess that's the end of the game right there. This like in general, if you're not a global, you shouldn't split post 20. So Sonya just threw the game right there. The loss of this game was mostly Sonya's fault. We can actually check and see how many deaths the Sonya has. 6 to 1 to 2 or 0 for the rest of the team. Yeah. That keeps dead no matter what, by the way, so you shouldn't be defending it, especially since they have a Sylvanas. The only place you can defend is core. Yeah, the only place you can defend is core. So should have pinged retreat. Like the major thing I'm not seeing from you is pings. you've pinged like 6 or 7 times this game, you should ping. There should be something going on often enough that you should ping 2 or 3 times a minute, whether it's retreat or go here or do this.
Yeah.
So you actually played pretty well. Mostly it was that Sonya, but if you know your team is making the wrong decision, you got to think about it. And if you know the Sonya is overextending constantly, which she was, ping retreat more. People being kind in post game chat, including you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I got pretty salty.
But yeah, your biggest thing is not realizing that polymorph is a really good follow up CC.
Yeah.
And you need to focus on that specifically. Also, just in general, every time you use a cooldown, it should be for a specific purpose. And you should... If you draft a cleanse support into a comp that needs cleanse, and you don't go cleanse, it's awkward.